everyone. Today I am so excited because I get to talk to New York Times best-selling author Hazel Gaynor. And this is Hazel's newest book, The Cottingley Secret. And I did not want this book to end, Hazel. It was so good. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. That's music to any writer's ears. That's just fantastic. Brilliant to hear. Thank you.
I was so excited when you said yes because I knew a little bit about this, but when I got the book and read this story, I mean, you just made this whole story come to life. And I just want you to tell everybody a little bit about how you got a hold of this. I mean, there's the question and answer in the back, which is amazing. I love that. I love when authors do that. But I wanted you to tell everybody about this story and how you found it, and because it's such an amazing, cool story about fairies.
Thank you. I know fairies. Well, you want to write a book about fairies.
Right.
It's amazing, actually, the whole journey to come to write this book. And it's interesting. I've kind of come to the conclusion that I think the idea to write this book found me rather than the other way around. This is a story I've known about since I was a little girl. I grew up in Yorkshire in England, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly where and when I first saw the photographs of the Cottingley fairies, but it's something that seems to have just always been there. And I think everybody, well, most people in Yorkshire would have some vague awareness or will have seen a photograph or heard someone talk about it. And I think that happened when, obviously, I was a little girl, and then when the truth about the photographs came out, I was just in my early teens, so it was obviously all in the news. So I must have been absorbing all of this right. Fabulous fairy tale. And, fast forward several decades, and here I am thinking about an idea for a new novel. And it was actually my agent who suggested, she said to me, have you ever thought about writing something around the Cottingley fairies? Which was amazing because she and I had never talked about them. Mm-hmm. I had never told my connections from back home in Yorkshire. And I had actually researched the event and had an ideas folder stored about it because it just, two girls finding fairies at the bottom of the garden. What's better than that?
I know. And I'd heard of it, but then I didn't know any of the story. But I definitely heard vague. I was trying to remember too, but I want to see if anybody, I don't even know if these pictures will even come across, but here is one of, let me see if I can get a close up of that, of one of the more famous photos of it. And it's weird, nowadays to look at a picture like that and be like, and they thought that was real, but they did.
This is what's so fantastic. So we look at, the girls, Elsie and Frances, they claimed to have taken photographs of real fairies in a little stream, which was behind the house that they lived in. And as you say, we're now 100 years on. It's literally the centenary of when that gorgeous, iconic first photograph was taken. And we look at it with our very modern eyes and all of the filtering and Instagramming and photoshopping that we do now, and we think, oh, come on, how could anyone believe this? But if we think about 100 years ago, photography was actually very new. Most people wouldn't have had access to their own camera. They would have gone to a photography studio, and it was quite a formal process to have your photograph, your portrait taken. And so lots of people didn't question this. It was just a given. How on earth could you fake a photograph? So for most people, there was never even the question that it had been faked. And when the photographs eventually were revealed, it was just after the First World War, and people were in this state of grief and had such terrible, terrible news for so many years. So the timing was perfect for people to see this beautiful little girl with these fairies, possibly backwards from where you're seeing it. And this is Frances Griffiths, who is the one of the two cousins who I focus on in The Cottingley Secret. It's really Frances's story that I'm telling. And when I look at this photograph, to kind of go back to the why I came to write this book, I just find her so enchanting. It's the most gorgeous image. And I wanted to know why. Why did they take these photographs? And why did they perpetuate this hoax for so many decades? And it's those questions that, without giving anything away too much, that I answer in reimagining the story in The Cottingley Secret. So, amazing. I love it.
Oh, I do. And anybody who watches me knows that historical fiction is right up there. I mean, history and historical fiction, you can get me every time. Okay, I'm totally sucked in, and I love you guys on Facebook because there is so many of you, and I find you like as I'm doing more, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many great authors of historical fiction out there, and that's what I love Facebook for, because it is so easy to find you guys. Like
equally, we love it to be able to connect with readers. It's such a fabulous time that we're living in, to have that immediacy of connection and response. And I know when I read a book and I love it, I just want to tell the author how much I love it, and I want to ask them questions and ask them how on earth they did it. So
which is why I'm doing this, because I get to talk to authors. But so I found you. I found you among all the other authors that, and now that I'm like friends with and a part of, and I love it. It's so cool. But so when I started reading this, I was like, wow, I had no idea. So then, so it's historical fiction. So you're always like, which part is real? Which part isn't real? Which part, and I love how you interweave the stories. I could not put this book down because, I'm reading the diary, okay, which is, such a great part of it. And then you're reading Olivia's story, okay? And then I come to realize, I guess Olivia is made up a little bit. Is her... Yes, so her part
she's
of
entirely fictional. Yeah, okay, she's completely... So the book is set partly in the past, in and around the events that happened in Cottingley. And obviously, as you say, to write historical fiction, you do have to have that basis of fact and research and authenticity, which is just wonderful to have as a writer. And then you kind of add layers and colour and voices and dialogue to those people we only see in photographs or can read about in academic historic books. But then the second part of the narrative is an entirely fictional thread, and that tells the story of a young woman, Olivia, who inherits her grandfather's bookshop in a lovely, real coastal town in Ireland called Howth. And it's how the two stories interweave, and how Olivia's story really is underpinned by these true events that happened in Cottingley 100 years ago. So it was great fun to have that basis in facts, but develop my own imagined world around that.
Yeah, and I never give away anything because I want people to read it like I got to read it. And I loved how the story developed and how you find out how she fits in, because it took a while, I'm trying to figure in, like, where does she fit in? And then you figure it out and you're like, it just adds so much depth to that story. And I was wondering, like, why did you bring Ireland? Like, what did Ireland have to do with this story?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, really. I live in Ireland now. So I originally, as I say, I was born in Yorkshire in England, and I moved to Ireland 16, nearly 17 years ago. My husband's Irish, so I've lived here ever since, and I've only ever written novels after I moved to Ireland. So my writing is really closely connected to being in Ireland. And also, obviously, there's a huge history and culture of fairies in Ireland. So it just seemed to me to be the perfect opportunity to bring two parts of my life together. So the reality of Yorkshire, and then the having moved to Ireland, and that's why I set the fictional part of the story in Olivia's world in Ireland, and this incredible backdrop of fairy folklore that we have here. I mean, fairies are very, very real here. I hope they are everywhere, but particularly in Ireland. So it wasn't anything I ever really questioned. It was just partly Yorkshire, partly Ireland, brings everything together, and it just seemed to work.
And it really did. I mean, like I said, this is such a quick read. Like I said, I finished it a couple of days ago, and I was so sad. I was like, I want to know more. But I do like how you have the ending. And then when I was doing research, I was like, let's back it up. So you started doing historic. This is your fourth book?
This is my fourth novel, my fourth historic.
So, I was like, so I want to hear your story. I want to hear, like, how did you start writing historical fiction?
So I've always read historical fiction. I studied history to A-level, so, just before college is the equivalent in the States. And I I've just always been drawn to the past. I think there's such fascinating people, events, places that we don't know much about or think we know something about, but when you start digging, oh my goodness, there's so much more in there. And it's just a fabulous jumping off springboard point for any novelist. I don't think I ever made a conscious decision to write historical fiction. When I started writing, I was just writing a story. I was just writing a book, and that happened to be set around the Titanic, which is another historic event that's always fascinated me.
Right.
So I didn't know what genres were. I was just an excited would-be writer, and that first novel that I wrote was The Girl Who Came Home, and again reimagined an Irish immigrant on the Titanic and what more happened in the aftermath. And then I set my next novel, A Memory of Violets, in Victorian London in the flower markets. And then my third novel, which came out last year, The Girl from the Savoy, was set in the 1920s in and around theatre and set around the life of a chambermaid in the Savoy Hotel in London. So just these fabulous eras and places and people that I've always been drawn to in one way or another. And when I start researching, I just get completely immersed. I hope you can tell in the writing.
I definitely can. And I think that's what, as a reader, I'm the same way. Like, I love the research that you guys do to it, because it's like fiction, but you're learning stuff about the past. And that's why I do love history books, but the stories in the historical fiction, I have no more fun read than a historical fiction book, because you're, like you said, you're drawing some fiction in, but the story is based on so much research. And that time period, first of all, let me just say, I always tell my English authors this, because I've interviewed a lot of you now, and I almost can tell the second I open a book that it's an English author. So, and I am half English, but there is something about the way you guys write that I can pick it up, and I can never put your books down. There is something about it, and I'm not meaning to make all the authors in America mad, but but it is. I don't know what it is, but I am drawn to your writing, and it's the way you guys write a story. And it all started with A Girl on the Train, I have to say. It all started with that book, and then after that, I was like, oh, it's got to be an English author. Oh my gosh, she's got to be English, and I can like pick it out now. So it's a skill.
Yeah, you can tell. So you've detected it. So,
I've detected it, yes. But what was my point? The different stories, like even this time period for America. My grandparents were born in 1915, 1917 era, and in America, what was going on was this, like, I think it was the Spanish flu. Okay, people were just dying. Like, they used to take me when I was little to all the grave sites of their brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and so I thought it was really amazing, because it was World War II, but it was also this era for us. It was not a very happy era either. It was a time of a lot of loss, and a lot of mothers that had to bury children and stuff like that. So I wish they were still alive, because I would ask them, like, how much they knew about this, like how much Americans got to know about.
Yeah, and this is what's fascinating, I think, about a historical novel, because, as you say, history books can teach you so much, but they're from a very academic perspective, and they can be quite flat in the providing of information. And I think what a historical novel can do is really bring those people and events to life, and get, I'm very connected to the human condition. I'm fascinated by that. And I think, like you say, an event like the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic, we face all those human emotions of fear and grief and love and hope and failure, and they're all very compelling premise for a novel.
Right.
And I often say a historical novel, really, it's just a story set in the past, but the things that drive the novel and that the characters are concerned about are exactly the same things we're concerned about today.
Yes.
Family and safety and all of those things. So it's just a wonderful place to start a story and then add all that colour and description to take your reader back there. But hopefully they're not sort of consciously thinking, oh, she's been doing some research, because I always hope a reader will just fall into those pages and just be there, be in 1917 in Cottingley,
Yeah, Absolutely. And I've never been to England. I have read so many books now. And like I said, I'm half English. I hope I get there. I really do. I'm 52.
Well, you have to go now.
I know. I feel like I really need to go. But okay, so the subject of fairies, like everybody, we had, Tinkerbell, and we had, when I was growing up, and the difference, so like as a little girl that ever had Tinkerbell everything, and the thought of that there could be. But and now you're in Ireland, and I was thinking that I really never thought about how in Ireland it is kind of a real thing. Like fairies are like a real big part of their history, I guess, or like their belief, like leprechauns and fairies, and
the little people, the good people, that's they're very much a part of culture, and still are. There are what we call here in Ireland fairy forts, which are sacred places where it is that have been believed in very rural communities, say 150 years ago, that it was believed the fairies inhabited these places, and to this day they won't be touched. So even if a housing development was being planned, this area where the fairies were believed to have been will be avoided, because if you start to tinker with that, you're inviting the fairies to come to your home and cause trouble. So there is this real respect, and we do talk about the Tinkerbell, the Disney fairy, the Irish fairies. There certainly would be mischievous fairies in there. We'd have the puka and the she, that you'd hear about the banshee, and these not such friendly fairies who are walking amongst us. So there's this real kind of respect for the fairy in Ireland, and it was just in the news here a couple of weeks ago how the conditions of the roads had been blamed on the fairies, because the fairies, the fairy fort nearby, hadn't allowed the road to be improved in condition. So it's alive and well, which is just fabulous. It's fascinating. There are fairy trails here in Ireland. There are fairy little fairy adventure trails you can take children on. It's just lovely to have that magical history here. I think we'd do well to reconnect with it a lot of the time.
I was gonna, and the fifth picture, I mean, you have to look really close, okay? But I did see, because I was like studying that picture. I was like, is that? And I was like, what do you think of that picture?
Yeah, so the fifth picture, and interestingly for readers, the 5 cautionary photographs are included at the back of the book, so you can sort of flick forwards and backwards, because I felt you need a visual reference while you're reading this.
I was so happy you put those there, yes.
So the 5th photograph is very different to the first 4, and there is still some question about that photograph, and to whether what it shows is fairies like the ones in the first 4, or does it show real fairies? And it is very different, and it's still the source of speculation. And actually, Frances obviously is now passed away. She lived to be an elderly lady and maintained all of her life that she really did see fairies.
Right.
Her daughter, who I talked to through the creation of the book, within the family, they still hope this 5th photograph will be analysed with modern technology to kind of prove once and for all if that 5th photograph is, as Frances said, the one true photograph, or is it not? And the question still remains. So it's just fabulous. It's like this fairy tale that goes on and on and on and on and on.
And you have to say, when you look at the 5th picture, it is so different. It would have been way harder for them to make that up with some, don't you think? With the way they were doing them for the first 4, you can definitely tell that there's a difference. And it's like, I don't know how they would have done it. I really don't. I look at it and I'm like, I don't know how they could have done it.
Yeah.
So
and actually, the 2 girls, they dispute who took that last photograph, which adds to it again. And of course, in all of this, you've got Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of the Sherlock Holmes books, who was the whole reason we know about these photographs, because he wrote about them in a magazine article, and he absolutely believed that they were true. So we have his influence in all of this as well, which was another fascinating strand to look at.
It made them more famous. His interest is what made him famous. Okay, so I want to talk about your next book, because I can't believe you have 2 books coming out so closely together. Did you write them very close together, or is it just the way it was published, like in the publishing world?
Yeah, a little bit to do with the publishing cycle, but they were. I kind of had a crazy year last year, so I was already committed to writing the Cottingley Secret, and then my co-author Heather Webb and we've been talking about working together, and Last Christmas in Paris came to be, and it just happened that the publishing cycle meant that the two books would come out quite closely together, which has been fabulous. It's been a completely different experience writing a novel with another author. Again, historical fiction. This book takes us through the 4 years of the First World War, is all written in letters, which was, a really interesting way to write. So we're very excited to have written a book together, to share the publishing journey together and the promotional journey. So we're touring around the States in October on the kind of East Coast. So we're very excited. Yeah, so I've 2 books to talk about.
Oh my gosh, I hope that you can. Like, I'm in Pennsylvania, which is right between, and I'm situated, like, I'm close to Philly, but New York is only an hour and a half for me. So
we're coming near you. We are coming close to you. I can't remember exactly where we are, but is it Doylestown? I think we're coming to. I might be saying the wrong place.
I will look. I'm going to look on the thing because I will bring my book, my Christmas in Paris book, with me.
Oh, yeah. We'd love to see you.
And get some pictures for Facebook. I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be great. And I didn't even know that. I'm really happy to hear. I'm reading a lot of World War II historical fiction right now. It is huge. Okay, yeah. I don't know if you've noticed. It is
absolutely
huge right now. So I'm so happy to hear that this is a World War I, because I kind of always feel like I thought maybe I missed, because a lot of World War II authors will tell me, well, it's big right now because the research, the people that they're talking to, they're dying off. There isn't that many of them anymore. So they're trying to get all their research in so they can do interviews with people that actually were there. And World War I, well, we know that's going to be harder. I mean, to research that. But I'm really happy that it is World War I, because I have not read a lot of World War I. So it will be really fun to read. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I literally have a copy here. Isn't that handy? Look, in front of me.
Yay!
This is it. So
this is a great cover. I mean, look at this. Okay, I got to show people this cover, because I love when I have the hardback, and I always promote hardback books, okay? Because I love hardback. Yeah, there we go. I mean, look at these pictures. Look at them. I mean, the covers are amazing. They really are. Yeah. I love them.
We're so excited. I've been so blessed with all my book covers. I adore them. I don't know if you can see, I've actually got some on the wall behind me.
I know. I was looking at them and I'm like, I hope it doesn't look horrible to you that I'm like trying to look at the covers.
Tiny part of the office where I write. So I have a few on the wall behind me. But when Heather and I saw the cover for Last Christmas in Paris, and it's so gorgeous. It's going to be released in the fall. It's based around the premise of, everybody thought when the war started in 1914, they said, oh, it'll be over by Christmas. Hence the title, and it's set partly in and around Christmas time as well. So we take these characters through the 4 years of the war and how their story is told and their different perspectives of the First World War. And as you say, we had written short stories about the First World War and both felt there was so much more to say about the event, and that we are in this centenary period of the Great War. And once we get beyond that, will we still be talking about it? So we just felt this was a real opportunity for us to capture some of those voices and stories. And we researched a lot of letters that were exchanged between soldiers at the front and their loved ones at home, and tried to sort of recreate that emotion. So I think you definitely need tissues, because we've had a lot of very weepy readers when they've read. And again, a very quick read, so I think you get really immersed in it, and have just floored people. They've been sobbing and have book hangers for hours. So
that's so awesome. And you know what? English history, another thing about it for me, and maybe people out there, is that we've had Victoria, the PBS.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
How
Season 2 is coming.
I know. I'm so excited. What I do for that is, like, nobody I know wants to watch it with me. So I wait till really late at night and I watch Victoria by myself, and just I love Victoria. That actress they have playing her. Oh, she's just amazing.
She's amazing. Yeah.
She is amazing.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So we have all this kind of English history, and I'm just loving it. I really am. So my last question is, what is next?
Ooh, good question. Well, what's next is, I'm sticking with the historical fiction, you'll be pleased to hear. So partly set in the Victorian era. And the novel will be called The Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter. And it tells the story of a Victorian heroine called Grace Darling, who was a lighthouse keeper's daughter off the coast of Northumberland in England. And she became very famous because she saved survivors of a shipwreck, the ship was wrecked just off her lighthouse, and she rowed out with her father to save them and was catapulted to fame. And again, she's one of these long-lost historic voices that I've known about since I was a young girl, and I am fascinated with her. So The Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter will be a retelling of her story. And similarly to how I did with the Cottingley Secret, I'll weave into that the second narrative of a fictional character who's actually going to come to a lighthouse in America, around Newport, Rhode Island. So part of the book will be set there, and part of the book will be set on the rugged Northumbrian coast in England across a 100-year period. And I'm very excited about it, and I can't wait to start to share that with you all next year.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what, Hazel? I can see how much you love doing this. I mean, you just seem like... You just seem so excited about every... I know, it's so much fun to see you be so excited about every one of these stories. I mean, could you have pictured doing anything else than doing this?
Well, this is my second career, so I had a very long career of, your 9-to-5 office job, suited and booted, very, very different environment, and really I only started writing very late, just before I turned 40, and I was at home with young children. The career path had stopped for me, and it was really an opportunity for me to embrace a love of books and writing, and I never in a million years thought that I could do this for a living, and I'm so grateful every day that I get to wake up and come up here to my slightly messy office, which I'm hiding from you, and create and write these fictional worlds, and to connect them with readers who love those worlds is just fantastic. It's so rewarding, and I never take it for granted, and I'm eager to work on the next book and to keep the stories coming. So yeah, it's been a real adventure for me to do this, and long may it last.
Yes, and let me tell you, you are an amazing writer, okay? I can't wait to read more books of yours, and after I've read this, I'm going back, okay? I'm going back to as far as I can, fit them into the other books I have to read. I am definitely reading yours because you are amazing, and I want everybody to see this. It is the Cottingley Secret. I'm going to try to see you. I'm going to look up on your website to see where you are, that I'm close by, and I want to meet you and get my book signed. So thank you so much. It was so much fun talking to you and meeting you, and I can't wait to see everything else you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much for all your enthusiasm and for taking the time to talk to me. It's been wonderful.
Yes, so I won't say goodbye. We'll say see you later and soon. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
See you at the bookstore.
That's right. Thanks, Hazel. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, and you. Take care.
Yeah.